Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 10th of July, 2023. We are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube channel, the Wilmsfront Odyssey channel, and also on the Wilmsfront Rumble channel. Hello to everyone in the live chat, and of course, on the interactive entropy software, where I will put the link into the YouTube chat as per usual, where you can send through a direct question, or even better yet, send through a super chat to support not just the production of Tim's News Explosion, but also other Unshackled productions. Stay tuned for the end of the show. I've got a big announcement about a new Unshackled production. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, but we will start tonight at the White House, which they found last week. The Secret Service, they found white powder in the White House. Now, it wasn't the usual white powder that gets sent in the mail by some lunatic, which they have to get the biohazard suit people in to check if it's ricin or something. Normally it just turns to be talcum powder mixed with something else, but this time it turned out to be cocaine. And it was found in the West Wing, which is where the president's staff is. And the story changed about where exactly it was found. Now, at first, it was the story changed. They said first that it was found in an entrance area cubby located between a foyer and a lobby, near where some official vehicles park, such as the vice presidential limo or SUV, but it is now located near the Situation Room, one floor below the Oval Office. Now, there are heaps of staff that work in the White House and the West Wing. Obviously, any number of them could be a cokehead. There's a lot of high-powered people who, individuals who use cocaine to give them a buzz or whatever. But there is one person who is at the top of the suspects list, and they were just at the White House recently for 4th of July celebrations. Now, obviously, Hunter Biden is the obvious suspect, and that's who a lot of the accounts on Twitter have been speculating it is, but it could be someone else, and they might be they might uncover who the individual is. Then the story will be they took the fall for Hunter. Now, Biden's White House spokeswoman. There's so many white puns. Are we showing with the White House is not? It's not actually white paint on the front. It's white powder. So Karine Jean-Pierre, she was asked about the investigation into who the cocaine snorting prick might be, and if it is Hunter Biden.
in the most recent killings. Really tragic. Wondering what the White House has to say about that. And then secondly, sorry to bring up cocaine again, but there was a question yesterday during the press gaggle with Andrew Bates that was, I guess, he said that he was avoiding it because of the Hatch Act. I'm just asking again, can we just say once and for all whether or not the cocaine belonged to the Biden family?
So, a couple of things there. He mentioned the Hatch Act because the question was posed to him using Donald Trump, and so he was trying to be very mindful. Okay, I hear you, but you're asking me a question, so I'm answering it for you. And so that's why he said the Hatch Act. So I would, have you read the transcript and read the transcript fully so you can see exactly what he was trying to say. So that's number one. So we're not avoiding the question. That is not true. We've answered this question, litigated this question for the last 2 days exhaustively. There has been some irresponsible reporting about the family. And so I got to call that out here. And I have been very clear. I was clear 2 days ago when talking about this over and over again as I was being asked a question. As you know, and media outlets reported this, the Biden family was not here. They were not here. They were at Camp David. They were not here Friday. They were not here Saturday. They were not here Sunday. They were not even here Monday. They came back on Tuesday. So to ask that question is actually incredibly irresponsible. And I'll just leave it there. Okay.
Now, as you all know, I'm a libertarian, and so when it comes to drugs, I'm in favor of legalizing drugs. And so my personal position is if someone wants to snort cocaine or ingest what other substance they like, that's their decision. But the difference here is that the White House and its agencies enforce even though various states have legalized marijuana, they are all still prohibited substances, illicit substances at the federal level. So it's the role of the Biden administration to fight the drug war. And Joe Biden was a senator for Delaware for 36 years. And in the late 80s and early 90s, when there was the crack cocaine epidemic, Biden, he voted for increased penalties for drug use and trafficking. So it's the reason why it's important for the Secret Service to get to the bottom of who the cocaine belongs to is because if they let it slide, and there have been there have already been stories put out saying they might never be caught, the cocaine snorter. The fact is that there is a hypocrite working in the White House. They're working in the executive government, which enforces the drug law, yet they're not following their own laws. Now, of course, if this, we've already covered on this program that Hunter Biden got the sweetheart deal from Attorney General Merrick Garland at the Department of Justice, pled guilty to 2 tax code violations and illicit purchasing of a firearm, avoids no jail time. But imagine if all this plus the cocaine was Donald Trump Jr., it would be all over the cable news channels 24/7, including in Australia, all across the world. But because it's Hunter Biden, it just gets reported, and then that's the end of it. Now, I wonder if Hunter Biden wanted to come to Australia for, I don't know, something, would he be granted a visa promptly? Because this was not the case when it came to Donald Trump Jr., who should be in the middle of his Australian tour hosted by Turning Point USA. When you go to the website, trumplive.com.au, you are greeted with this important announcement. Turning Point wished to advise that due to unforeseen circumstances, Donald Trump Jr. Live, scheduled to appear in Sydney Brisbane and Melbourne has been postponed. Ticket holders are urged to hold on to their tickets with detail of the rescheduled date to be confirmed in the coming days. Tickets for the original shows will be valid for the new date. Ticket holders will be contacted directly by TicketBud or Ticket Tech with details. Patrons unable to attend the rescheduled dates are able to obtain a full refund. For any further questions, please contact Turning Point at events@tpost.com.au. Now, apparently, because the Department of Home Affairs only granted Donald Trump Jr. his visa last Wednesday morning, he was due to jump on a plane within the next 24 hours. Now, I don't know if they had to, because the Albanese government, they deny that, well, we didn't block him. He has just chosen to postpone his tour. They deny any shenanigans. And Clare O'Neil, the Home Affairs Minister, decided to tweet and delete this. I couldn't believe that she tweeted this. Is she trying to one up the Trumps with this tweet? Geez, Donald Trump Jr. is a bit of a sore loser. His dad lost an election fair and square, but he says it was stolen. Now he's trying to blame the Australian government for his poor ticket sales and cancelled tour. Donald Trump Jr. has been given a visa to come to Australia. He didn't get cancelled. He's just a big baby who isn't very popular. Now, Albanese stepped in and ordered her, Clare O'Neil, to delete that post. Normally, she's pretty professional, Clare O'Neil, so I'm not sure what brought that on. But you might remember over a decade ago, Geert Wilders, the Dutch politician who is, he calls himself Islam critical, not anti-Islam. His Party for Freedom will be contesting the fresh Dutch elections, which the incumbent Prime Minister Mark Rutte won't contest, ending his 13-year rule. Just a bit of an update from the Netherlands there, but I digress. So Chris Bowen, who was the immigration minister at the time, took quite a while to approve Geert Wilders' visa, and now Donald Trump Jr. applied for a visa. He doesn't get a visa waiver because he's coming here for a show to sell tickets and earn money. And so he applied for the visa in May and has only been granted, early July. So it's possible there were some shenanigans. So Turning Point Australia, if they wanted the tour to proceed as planned, they should have kicked up a stink and gone to the media earlier saying, hey, this is happening in less than, say, 2 weeks. What's the hold up here? But the Albanese government, they haven't cancelled the visas of any controversial speakers. They granted Kelly J. Keane a visa to come to Australia for a Let Women Speak tour. It was actually the coalition government that was the biggest canceller of centre-right commentators coming to Australia. Peter Dutton, when he was immigration minister, banned anti-abortion activist Troy Newman from coming to Australia. David Coleman, who is now the Shadow Communications Minister, leading the charge about the misinformation bill. When he was immigration minister, he denied entry to Australia to Gavin McGuinness and Milo Yiannopoulos, and he also it seemed engaged in shenanigans, messing around the visas with Stefan Molyneux and Lauren Southern, who eventually did come to Australia. Now, Nigel Farage, who was going to be supporting Donald Trump Jr. on this Australian tour, he's been to Australia many times. He was just here last year on a speaking tour, and he had no problem getting a visa from the Albanese government. He put out a statement saying Donald Trump Jr. had attracted huge interest and 8,000 tickets had already been sold. The very late granting of a visa left too little time for travel logistics. The ridiculous tweet by Government Minister Clare O'Neil has now been deleted. Many are saying that the late visa is in effect a form of cancel culture. Well, not quite, as the 6 months visa is now in place, and with the rescheduled dates, the tour will be even bigger success. I will be happy to continue as his supporting act. Nigel Farage, as you remember last week, I think it is up to about 9 banks that have refused to open a new account for him after his longtime bank said that they were closing his personal and business accounts for purely commercial reasons. And also Alex Antic, the South Australian a Liberal senator, is also a supporting act. But given we're not living in, thankfully, the time of internal border closures, he just needs to get on a domestic flight to support Donald Trump Jr.'s tour when it is rescheduled. So it'll be in the next six months. Lady of Charlotte says exactly, Donald Trump Jr. should announce his intention to transition. They'll lay out the red carpet. Donna Trump, maybe. And now there was a cartoon by Johannes Leakin, the Australian crash course, Anthony Albanese, saying, calling Donald Trump Jr. a big baby just makes you look a bit childish. I know you are, but what am I? I mean, you'd expect something like this from Mean Girl Katie Gallagher, not Clare O'Neil. Now, over the past weekend, Joe Biden, he was at the beach in Delaware. I won't share with you the video of him shirtless at the beach because you won't be able to unsee it. But Donald Trump, the former president, he got a rock star reception at the UFC. Walked out with Dana White. Joe Rogan was there. Mel Gibson was there. It was really a alpha list crowd, and the stadium erupted when he came out. Even the ESPN UFC commentators, ESPN owned by Disney, even they were pumped for Trump. Finally, some sports coverage, which is not woke. At the third Ashes test in Leeds, which Australia lost, they had the rainbow stumps, which I just couldn't believe. Now, coming back to Australia, the Fadden by-election is this Saturday. That's the northern Gold Coast seat vacated by former coalition government minister Stuart Robert. It is likely to be retained by the LNP candidate Cameron Caldwell, who, we don't know what the swing will be. We know that in the past he has been a swinger. I wonder if that sort of joke will make it into the coverage on Saturday night. The Unshackled won't be doing a Fadden by-election live stream. We will definitely be doing one on the Voice referendum and the New Zealand general election, both in October this year. Now, Stuart Robert, he most probably resigned because he was one of the Robodebt Awful Four who oversaw the illegal Centrelink debt recovery scheme that was implemented by Scott Morrison when he was social services minister. It was called Robodebt because it was an automated income averaging scheme which matched Centrelink payments with income data from the tax office. It was illegal because it didn't comply with the legislation, and income averaging, because obviously some people are on welfare for a period of time, then they get job, and this income averaging method, it was in no way worked out whether someone had rorted Centrelink because they were working at some point in time, and obviously on some sort of benefits the other time. That didn't mean that they were rorting, but it was called robo-debt because it was automated. The letters were sent out. People were wrongly hounded, and 3 people committed suicide because of the stress of the debt recovery scheme. They were told they owned thousands. It was the most shameful episode in the 9 years of coalition government. Scott Morrison was the Social Security Minister who set it up. Then the other social services ministers who succeeded him and oversaw the scheme were Christian Porter, Alan Tudge, and Stuart Robert. Alan Tudge, of course, went in April with the Aston by-election, which the Labor Party won. The first by-election won by government from an opposition in over 100 years. Christian Porter retired at the 2019 general election. Scott Morrison is still in the parliament on the backbench. There are renewed calls for him to resign from the parliament. There are already calls for him to resign when his secret ministries were revealed in the second half of last year. And now the Cronulla Sharks, his Sharkies, they're thinking of tearing up Scott Morrison's number one ticket holder status with the Cronulla Sharks. Now, the whole reason why, well, there were a few reasons why Scott Morrison thought that this robo-debt debt recovery scheme was a good idea, and he did receive incorrect advice from his department, which he didn't follow up. At the Royal Commission, the Royal Commissioner Catherine Holmes gave the report, the findings to the Governor General last Friday. It was the then head of the Human Services Department, Catherine Campbell. She came in for the most criticism for overseeing robo-debt. She's now taken leave from her nearly $1 million a year position overseeing the AUKUS contracts. So there is a sealed section in the report which recommends criminal and civil proceedings against politicians and public servants who implemented this illegal scheme. There has already been the money being returned to those 500,000 who were adversely affected. There's now the talk about whether these people who are put through such stress will be compensated as well. And now there has been no contrition, of course, from Scott Morrison and Alan Tudge. They believe that they didn't do anything wrong and that there were no adverse findings against them. Scott Morrison, in fact, disputes that the findings of the Royal Commissioner. Now, it seemed to me that going back to the reasons why Scott Morrison thought that robo-debt was a good idea is because, well, he thought it would get some extra money in the budget, but also because he and the other Liberal ministers seem to be living in this it's more a 1990s Australian mindset that dole bludgers, everyone hates them, and so there definitely needs to be a lot of investigation on them to see if they're rorting the system. But in the current year, there's no more a current affair hit pieces on dole bludgers like the Paxton family. Like, there is a lot more sympathy these days for those doing it hard, who can't find work or who are having mental issues or going through other tough times in their life. Though the crew at the Australian Unemployed Workers Union don't do a particularly good job in putting unemployed people in a sympathetic position. One of their directors had a terrible did a terrible interview with Ben Fordham on 2GB. Now, what I take out of this disgusting episode is that because there were warnings as back as 2015 that the scheme was illegal, but politicians, and Scott Morrison is chief among them, never like to admit that they've done anything wrong. In fact, they double down. And so this is what the coalition government did for another 5 years. And following from there, the COVID lockdowns, when a lot of vulnerable people, low-income people, were given obscene multi-thousand-dollar fines for being outside for a non-approved reason. I mean, Dan Andrews here said that he still remember he once said, "We're coming for you for your unpaid fines." We know in New South Wales that the Supreme Court of New South Wales has put an injunction on the collection of any more COVID fines. These fines can mean that people, these outstanding fines, which we don't know if they're 100% legal, at least in New South Wales, can mean that people can't get their driver's license or registration renewed. It can really disadvantage them. And of course, the politicians who implemented the lockdown, Dan Andrews, doesn't believe that he did anything wrong during the pandemic. He said, we made no apologies for saving people's lives. So Dan Andrews' belligerence and going after people for these COVID fines, who a lot of them are on very low incomes. I mean, he is in the same league as Scott Morrison, Alan Tudge, Christian Porter, and Stuart Robert, causing this financial grief to extremely vulnerable people. And so this is my greatest gripe with politicians, is that they can never admit that something that they did is wrong. They prefer to double down, which ends up victimizing people. Now, up in Queensland, a week before the Fadden by-election, the Liberal National Party had their state conference where LNP Queensland Senator Jared Rennick, whose term expires at the end of June 2025, was dumped to an unwinnable position on the LNP Queensland Senate ticket at the next election. Now, contrary to what a lot of people were speculating, he is not going to quit and go to another party. He released a statement this afternoon on his Facebook, thanking the grassroots members of the LNP for the opportunity. He said he was disappointed not to receive the party's re-endorsement, but remains committed to fighting for Queensland constituents as part of the LNP Queensland Senate team, and he will persist in holding the Labor government and the bureaucracy accountable, and will work to reduce overreach into our lives. I extend my gratitude to my federal colleagues for their support and particular endorsements, especially Peter Dutton. I look forward to working with the Liberal National Federal team to regain government in 2025. Politics should always be about putting people and our values first, and I continue to do that for the next 2 years. So a very humble statement from Gerard Rennick. I know that many in the freedom movement community were disappointed that he lost pre-selection, and there is now only 2 of the 5 senators who crossed the floor to vote with Pauline Hanson and Malcolm Roberts' bill to ban vaccine passports in 2022. So Conchetta Viravanti Wells, a Liberal for New South Wales, is no longer there. No longer is Sam McMahon from the Country Liberal Party. Only Matt Canavan and Alex Antic are there. Matt Canavan was just re-elected. Alex Antic faces a re-election in the Senate. The next election, his term also expires in 2025. Though given that he is going on a mass Conservative recruiting drive within the South Australian Liberal Party, he is much more likely to retain his seat. The third spot on the LNP Queensland ticket went to Stuart Fraser, a Brisbane businessman and long-serving party treasurer, who is known publicly for being the reforming president of the exclusive Tattersalls Club, who paved the way for women to become members. Now he only lost by 3 votes, Rennick, and part of the reason why a few voted against him, because you might remember he threatened to hold up legislation in the Senate for the LNP unless vaccine passports and mandates were abolished. He said, people say I'm holding the government to ransom, but the government is holding people who don't want to take the jabs to ransom. Now, Anthony Albanese, Airbus elbow, he is overseas again. He is on his way to Lithuania for the NATO summit, where Volodymyr Zelensky was hoping that Ukraine's application for NATO membership could be discussed, but because Ukraine is in a conflict with Russia, NATO membership is not open to nations that are currently in conflict. Now, Australia has been invited, even though, because NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Australia is nowhere near the North Atlantic. We're in the South Pacific and the South Indian Ocean as well. But Anthony Albanese, on his way, he was in Berlin to sign a $1 billion defense deal with Germany to rearm them. So Australia is going to sell 100 Brisbane-made Boxer heavy weapons carriers to Germany. So Australia's military industrial complex is starting to build up, and now expanding, exporting to overseas country. Pico says, would Australia ever join NATO? They said Japan could join if they wanted at one point. In the 70s, there was CETO, the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, but that fell by the wayside. We have the Quad, which is basically the No China's club here with India, Japan, the US and Australia, but Joe Biden cancelled that because of the debt ceiling negotiations. Now, also in Europe is Trade Minister Don Farrell. He's in Brussels trying to finalize a European Union trade deal, which is, of course, the EU trade protection barriers are very strong there. So he's had to hop on a plane as well. So I assume that Richard Marles is running the country, acting Prime Minister, while Airbus Elbow is away again. But who knows? He could be somewhere since he's Defence Minister. Now, going on to other national news, Anthony Albanese, he was eager to promote that when July 1 ticked over, there would be cheaper childcare, greater childcare subsidy. Just don't pay attention to higher power prices and other indexed fees and interest, like the 7.1 indexation of HEX help. And now cheaper childcare is supposed to the aim is to allow more women to return or remain in the workforce. Governments are obsessed with having high female work participation. It's really not promoted at all anymore. Stay-at-home mums. It's all about we need women working, and they have to be the super mum. This is the thing. They have to. Women are told they're told that they can have it all, but the expectation is on them that they have to have it all. That for the good of the country, you must both be in the workforce and raise children as well to reverse the aging population. But it turns out, imagine my shock, that this female workforce participation push is resulting in quite a. I didn't realize it was this bad. Quite a really bad baby drought, and so. This article in the Melbourne City statistical region, the fertility rate slumped to 0.66 of replacement level, which is it's a fraction of the 2.1 replacement level, which is which is part of the reason why the Albanese government opens up the migration floodgates. In Sydney, mothers under 35 are increasingly rare. The 2021 census revealed nearly half the city's women aged 30 to 34 have never had a child. It mentions here that that obviously the disruptions and uncertainty of COVID, but the cost of living crunch, high inflation, rising interest rates, housing affordability, and also it mentions here an array of personal factors affect decision-making about childbearing, including education, career, and financial circumstances. Economic conditions, especially labor market stability, play a role, as do social norms and expectations, which is what I was talking about before. And going down here, a new study of workers under the age of 40 found 70% of the women surveyed reported the cost of housing influenced the number of children they plan to have. And if we go further down here, the federal government's projected fertility rate for Australia has been revised down from 1.9 babies per woman to 1.62. But there is a population expert, Udoy Sagir, said that it'll probably goes down to as low as 1.4 or even 1.3. That's what's happening in European countries. Italy has a very old population, and also the Northern Asian nations such as South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. Their fertility rate is extremely low. South Korea's fertility rate is just 0.7%. Japan is really tragic, with like people marrying virtual girlfriends and going for pets instead of children as well. It's really sad what's happening there up there in North Asia. Even sadder that's what's happening here. So unless the role of the stay-at-home mother, or if we want to be modern stay-at-home parent, one parent stays at home looking after the children. I'd love to know in the chat. We have a few mothers, Lady of Charlotte and Dawn Browning. I don't see Margot here. Let me know if you were stay-at-home mums when you were raising your kids, because stay-at-home mothers raising children, when they get that nurture and attention and also discipline as well, it has a long-term social good, is that you have you have, well, a more better citizens, because how many times have we seen the story of youth criminals coming from broken homes, one parent absent, or they're just or just raised by the state. Lady of Shalott says, you'll be despised by it and told to your face that you are worthless. Australia hates stay-at-home mothers. Try being one. You'll find that out fast. It's really, really sad. Linda Hunter says the old town hall dance scene. Well, that used to be how boy meets girl, but we have these career women going into their 30s and 40s, their biological clocks ticking. That's what the whole Bridget Jones movies were about. Why are there so many unmarried women in their 30s? So yes, Australia will have to make up the shortfall of the aging population, either through, well, as I said, robots, mass migration, or maybe incentivizing couples to have more children, and making it more acceptable for one parent to stay at home. Now, of course, we are seeing at first we had the various state governments, beginning in Victoria, outlawing the Nazi swastika. There is now a federal law coming in, which will also ban the sale of Nazi memorabilia. And not surprisingly, there is the online sales of Nazi memorabilia have skyrocketed to beat the ban, which has very much triggered Devere Abramovich. He was down in Tasmania to cry tears of joy as they become the first state in Australia to comprehensively ban the Nazi salute, a horizontal hand movement. There is a law in New South Wales which bans any Nazi imagery, but is not explicit about the Nazi salute. They're trying to prosecute a Croatian soccer fan for doing a Nazi salute at the Australia Cup final last year. Now, I've gone through it's already ridiculous to ban the display of symbols. I mean, if we're going to ban offensive symbols, why not ban the hammer and sickle, the ISIS flag? There are heaps of obscene symbols, but banning hand movements, this is where you get something as ridiculous as this. This Hail Bus sign in Adelaide. There is going to be a review on the sign after a single complaint saying it was similar to Seek Hail salute, despite image being around for years. Yes, you can no longer seek and hail a bus because apparently it can be misinterpreted as a Nazi salute. And so yeah, we have this situation where if you don't raise your hand correctly, or even you can be accused of being making a Nazi salute if you're photographed with in an instance where your hand looks like it's in a Nazi salute. So this is a situation that we're at. So I'm not sure if you've seen this meme, how to make sure that your hand movement doesn't get you 12 months in prison. So calling waiter, you got to go right at the top. But if you go at about 2 o'clock, you'd say 2 o'clock on a clock, 12 months in prison. Call a taxi, you've got to go straight. Your arms got to go straight ahead to hail a taxi. That's also an expression, hail a taxi. Lower pet children, pet dog, rest. So make sure. I mean, what's next? Are they going to make the OK symbol illegal as well? This is also ridiculous. Now it's time for an update on the Voice referendum. Now, the No campaign last week was accused of racism because of a cartoon they published in the Australian Financial Review, which showed the Wesfarmers chairman Michael Chaney, because Wesfarmers, who own Bunnings, Office Wokes, you might recall, Target and Kmart. So you now need to boycott Target in Australia now, because the chairman of Wesfarmers, Michael Chaney, is giving $2 million of shareholders' money to the Yes campaign. So that's Michael Chaney giving the $2 million to Thomas Mayo, the communist, in the communist shirt. And it's got his daughter, Kate Chaney, the Teal independent for Curtin, as his puppet. Now, this was called Matt King called it a racist Jim Crow cartoon, because apparently drawing black men in a cartoon is racist, because, well, I think it's because you've actually got to color in their faces as black. So it is literal blackening a face, though Thomas Mayer is not that dark, because given he's got some European ancestry. I'm surprised that this cartoon wasn't called anti-Semitic, given that Thomas Mayo is part Jewish as well. I might make the point that the Chaney family, they are a 3-generation political dynasty in Western Australia. As Fred Chaney Sr. Was a Menzies government minister. He was a progressive Liberal. So was his son, Fred Chaney Jr. And so that is Kate's uncle, Michael Chaney. Kate's father, businessman, and also John Chaney, who was a Supreme Court Justice of New South Wales. So they used to be a blue blood family. Now they are teal, sort of similar to the Spender family in New South Wales. Allegra Spender, the Teal independent for Wentworth. Her father, John Spender, was a Liberal MP, and Monique Ryan, the Teal independent, she was also hanging out with Thomas Mayo recently. I think I've got that photo here. And even though, well, they all come from Monique Ryan, she doesn't come from a blue turned teal blood family. Even though she represents wealthy constituents, she's still more than happy to have a selfie with a communist. And Thomas Mayo, he co-wrote the Voice Handbook with former ABC journalist Kerry O'Brien, and now it has been uncovered that there is another communist who was on the Voice on the various Voice referendum committee advisory bodies, and that is Teela Reid, not Tara Reid, Teela Reid. And so Fair Australia, who it is powered by Advance Australia. Now, Advance Australia, they didn't apologise for that cartoon, which was great, though the Australian Financial Review apologised for publishing it, although they also pocketed the advertising money. So Fair Australia has released this profile ad on yet another communist in the Aboriginal voice referendum push movement. And of course, she wants much more than a simple voice in the Constitution.
Hi Australia, my name is Teela Reid.
I was part of the constitutional dialogue process.
Teela has been there in the heart of creating a framework for rethinking our constitution.
Referendum engagement group member Teela Reid.
You have all these remarkable people like Thomas Mayer
and Taylor Reid.
We have to understand this concept of the voice is the first step in redistributing power.
There does need to be these tough decisions and reparations for what First Nations peoples have lost. This notion of reconciliation, it's not enough.
The voice isn't dirty. It begins to demolish the systems that continue to oppress us.
All these remarkable people.
What we need is to get back to these radical roots of the Communist Party. It's going to be very difficult once we succeed for a government to ignore this voice. It will be powerful.
Authorised by Matthew Sheehan, Advance Australia, Canberra.
And now the old saying, when someone says to you who they really are, then believe them. But don't all of these Aboriginal activists realize that Marxism was created by two white guys, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels? So this has always perplexed me about all of these anti-white communists. You're literally you're reading from a Bible written by two white men. Now, of course, over in Western Australia, they've had that new law come in, that Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Protection Act, which means that for farmers and miners, they have to get a cultural consultant to check that there's no Aboriginal cultural heritage sites of significance. Now, I've already said that the voice being in the Constitution, that will probably expand that nationally. Linda Burney, she's really tried to reframe the voice debate this week, saying that the voice is not going to be focused on Australia Day or any of these things. It's going to be focused on practical outcomes. So she's really tried to reframe it, though it still remains that the voice can advise on anything. Another voice architect, Professor Megan Davis, says you can't shut the voice up. And Linda Burney, she has no power. She will have no power to tell the voice what it can advise on. But she realizes that not giving any detail about how the voice will work has seen its support for all through the floor. But going back to Western Australia, they opened up a new part of their Mitchell Freeway. And now, because there is all of these welcome to country, acknowledgement of country before anything, including ribbon cutting now, there was going to be a traditional Aboriginal smoking ceremony, but there was a dispute at the ribbon cutting ceremony about which local elder tribe has the authority to do the smoking ceremony.
Good evening. The opening of a freeway extension in our northern suburbs came to an abrupt halt when an argument broke out over who had the right to conduct the traditional smoking ceremony. The ribbon cutting on the $232 million project had to wait while traditional owners faced off.
But I don't need these people coming out here thinking that you fellas could say this, say that on this land.
It was an uncomfortable moment for the minister, caught up in a turf war among First Nations people.
I don't need permission of you or anybody else. Neither do I. This is my country too.
A traditional smoking ceremony going up in smoke after competing Aboriginal groups fired up at each other.
I thought you fellas was from Mora. Well, you thought wrong. No.
What do you make of this, Minister?
Oh, it's very interesting because obviously there's a lot of different Aboriginal groups with history in this area. So, yeah.
Did you pick the wrong one for the smoking ceremony?
No, I understand that was all handled by the department. So, anyway, we'll work through it.
Other Aboriginal elders stepping in.
And you're included in this, all right? So,
well, it doesn't seem like
it is.
Nobody told us nothing.
The rest of the opening ceremony went off without a hitch. Not so its construction, which suffered delays caused by the pandemic. The final cost of the freeway extension, $232 million. The barriers along the 5.6 kilometre stretch of blacktop will come down overnight and motorists will be able to drive on it from tomorrow. This is the final extension of the Mitchell Freeway for the foreseeable future. It runs out of road at Romeo Road. There are no plans for an extension. There is no funding. Best estimates are up to 15 minutes shaved off the drive from Alkimos to the city. Jeff Parry, 7 News.
And notice there, the minister there, she's like, I don't know what's going on. The department organised it all, and so she's looking like an absolute muppet there. Now, I wonder if when Dan Andrews' signature infrastructure project, the Metro Rail Tunnel, opens in 2025, whether there'll be this smoking ceremony as well to open it up as well. It's so long, it's going to go across I think a lot of traditional lands. And now Dan Andrews, his government is going to be giving Victorian taxpayer funds to the Yes campaign. I think it's the only state government that is going to be giving money to the Yes campaign. Victoria could end up being the only state that will vote yes in the referendum. I mean, the fact that Dan Andrews, far left socialist, cultural Marxist, continues to get re-elected, I mean, nothing surprises you anymore in Victoria. This is why I was not surprised when it broke on 3AW this morning that Cheltenham Secondary College in Melbourne, a state school, has as part of its official uniform, a puffer jacket with the Aboriginal flag on one side and the LGBT rainbow flag on the other. Is it a puffer jacket or a puffer jacket? Now, isn't it missing a flag, that puffer jacket? It's missing the Ukraine flag. That's what stood out to me. I mean, if you wanted to make it a complete virtue signaling, a brainwashing, indoctrination puffer jacket, you need the Ukraine flag as well, because heaven forbid that you have the Australian flag on any school uniform in Australia. So, as I said, Cheltenham Secondary College is a state school, and now this was broken on 3AW with Neil Mitchell. Now, Neil Mitchell is pretty woke, but he's not this woke that he thinks that this is okay. A parent called up and said that it was disgusting. It's not right. Now, this afternoon, Dan Andrews' Education Minister, Natalie Hutchins, said there were baseline compulsory uniform, but additional items were approved by school councils. And it is the Education Department spokesperson, not spokesman or woman, said that it was endorsed by the school council, and it was a student-led, student-initiated uniform, even though a parent up here says there was no consultation on the jacket's design and were disappointed the flags were included. Now, it's not compulsory, though. If you buy one for a cheap price of $89.95 Australian dollars, you're not allowed to black out or remove the LGBT or Aboriginal flag because that'd be defacing a school uniform, and that's not allowed. And now I just appeared before on this program. I did a pre-record with Reality Check Radio New Zealand. You'll remember I appeared on their breakfast program with Paul Brennan a couple of weeks back to discuss the Aboriginal voice. He invited me back on to discuss the Cheltenham puffer jacket that'll be airing tomorrow morning. I'll link it on the Unshackled website. So it's gone into international. This ridiculous. As I said to Paul, I'm pretty black-pilled when it comes to Victoria. This should be outrageous, and that mother was right. It's disgusting, but I just rolled my eyes and sighed. Well, I probably thought that something like this would happen in a Victorian school. It probably wasn't on my bingo card, but it certainly doesn't surprise me. Though it's interesting here, the school did not consult any Indigenous or LGBTQI groups before it used the flags on its jacket, though Equality Australia gave its stamp of approval. Its legal director, Gassan Kasia, I hope I've pronounced that right, said it was a wonderful student-led initiative that other schools should consider. Young people are again leading the way on inclusion. We shouldn't need flags to remind people they are loved and valued as they are. But the reaction from some people to this jacket demonstrates these symbols of inclusion are as important as ever. Now, as we're going to air tonight, Four Corners is airing a piece on transgender children. The promos are quite sympathetic to the plight of transgender children. I'll watch it after this show. Last night on 60 Minutes, Carl Stefanovic did I'd call it a fluff piece with Lydia Thorpe. Remember, he did one with Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese before the election. He did one with Lydia Thorpe where he gave her a very easy run. And it's said that, Parliament would be better with more Lydia Thorpes. Lydia Thorpe, she recommitted that she's against The Voice and she hopes it's voted down, and she will not seek re-election when her term expires in 2028. Not that she stood a chance running as an independent. So yeah, you've got there's you've got your 60 minutes fluff piece tonight, sympathetic to Lydia Thorpe, and check out Four Corners tonight. Now, over in London, even though they already had Pride London, which is supposed to be inclusive of all the LGBT alphabet identities, they need a separate Trans Pride Day in London, which the Muslim Lord Mayor of London endorsed. He said, "I wish to wish everyone at London Trans Pride today a joyful, safe and empowering day. It's never been more important to support trans people who are being stigmatized and placed at the heart of a toxic culture war. As your mayor, I'll always be on your side with the transgender flag." Now, I couldn't believe and I just said that I wasn't shocked before about the puffer jacket at Cheltenham High School, but I genuinely shocked at Trans Pride in London that they gave the microphone to a trans woman who has been in jail for 30 years for multiple violent offences, Sarah Jane Parker, and this is what she said. She transitioned in prison.
I was going to come here and be really fluffy and be really nice and say, yeah, be really lovely and queer and gay. No, if you see a turf, punch him in the fucking face.
Now, the Met Police in the UK have refused to open an investigation to Sarah Jane Parker's call for violence, saying punch how else could it be interpreted? Punch turfs in the face. Now, so Sarah Jane Parker was born Sarah Jane Baker, born Alan Baker, and is a convicted kidnapper, torturer, and murderer. Known for being the UK's longest serving trans-identified prisoner, having spent 30 years incarcerated for multiple violent crimes. So was initially sentenced to 9 years for kidnapping and torturing his stepmother's brother, but while in prison received additional time for attempting to murder a cellmate. In 2013, made headlines for identifying as a woman, costing taxpayers £10,000 for what media referred to as a sex chain. This is from Redux in the UK, and as Pale Conservative Australian, yes, she was waving an Antifa flag. Now, meanwhile, Just Stop Oil, they also reached a new low. They decided to crash the wedding of former Conservative Chancellor of the UK, George Osborne. He recently got married to, I think, his second wife, they decided that instead of flowers, they would bring their usual orange rubbish with them to pour on the just married couple. Now, I assume that Just Stop Oil, she's not a young brat, she's an old hag. I assume she'll get invited on Piers Morgan tonight or a segment of GB News, because that's how they're rewarded for their stunts. I'm not sure if you saw Mizzy. He decided, he and his mates, to terrorize a convenience store. So I assume that he'll be back on Piers Morgan's show and also on GB News, because that's what you do with these attention seekers. You give them even more platform, perpetuating the cycle of them committing these public nuisance acts. This is just the past week in, as Katie Hopkins calls, batshit bonkers Britain. And Katie Hopkins, she informed us of the alarming news that the UK had the hottest June on record, according to the Met Office.
The Met Office are warning that in the UK it was the hottest June on record since time began, and that heat has the fingerprints of climate change all over it. I mean, I didn't even realise the climate had fingers. That's how far behind I am. They say it helps explain why there's a water shortage and how thousands might die from heat this year. I also think, having worked inside the UK Met Office, and I understand how they're financed, how they need there to be climate drama so that they can get government grants for climate in order that they can employ the fact. But yes, people, be very, very afraid if there is another day where it goes above 21 degrees in the UK and it stops pissing down just for 1 second. Please know it's got the fingertips of climate all over it.
Yes. Be afraid, be very afraid. And even though we're shivering through this extremely cold winter, at least here in Victoria, I know that there's a number of Victorians in the chat, Lady of Charlotte, Dawn Browning. They can concur that it is an extremely cold winter, and it just seems to be going on and on and on. I mean, it's only the middle of July, and I've said it's like we're in Siberia. I mean, you hardly see the sun. It's windy and raining every day nearly, but we're told to be afraid because El Nino is coming this summer. It's going to be very, very warm and dry. In my opinion, it won't be a hot summer in Australia unless we have a number of days over 40 degrees like we used to when I was growing up. But according to the US National Centers on Environmental Prediction, we had the hottest day ever on planet Earth on Mondays and Tuesdays, as global average the temperature was 17.3 degrees Celsius. Oh my God, I cannot believe that. Yes, and we remember last week that King Charles and Sadiq Khan, they pressed the reset climate doomsday button. So there's definitely going to be irreversible 1.5 degrees warming of the Earth by 2030, unless we all drive electric vehicles. They're not Teslas anymore because Elon Musk, space Karen, bad. Yes, remember Sadiq Khan, his ultra low emission zone, and the cameras they're going to save the world. And now speaking of Elon Musk, apparently Mark Zuckerberg, he has launched the Twitter killer Threads, which is, well, it's basically is trying to sell it as Instagram. It's integrated with Instagram, but with Threads. And now Mark Zuckerberg, when he launched it, he basically said that it wanted to be he wanted to be a friendly, safe space where you talk about fluffy kittens and cute puppies. And so there is already conservatives, nationalists are getting their Threads removed for violating community guidelines. So it is going incredibly quick. And if you lose your Threads account for hate speech, then you also lose your Instagram account as well. So Mark Zuckerberg, he doesn't want it to be a news thread platform just to discuss, I don't know, the latest season of Married at First Sight or latest Hollywood movies, Disney movies. So yeah, it's meant to be, but it was sold that this was going to be their Twitter killer because Mastodon didn't take off. And so now, apparently, this time, it's like when they always said they were going to get Trump. This time we've got Trump. This time, Twitter's really going to be destroyed. Now, Elon Musk, he's really going to wreck the platform now. Now that Zuckerberg has got Threads, but yeah, I think that Threads, it'll be a novelty for a while, but all of the drips and the SJWs on Twitter, they won't be able to quit because obviously they're butthurt that it's not their platform anymore. But they just can't quit. And there's so many problems with Threads. There's no search bar, so many functional issues. I mean, I'm just on it. I don't post. I just are observing it. But yes, and Elon Musk is also planning to sue Zuckerberg for intellectual property infringement because he's hired a whole bunch of ex-Twitter employees to work on it. So it's sort of like it's like if Red Rooster started selling chicken with the secret herbs and spices there, you can guarantee that KFC would probably sue there. I wonder how the lawsuit will be sorted. Will it be trial by combat as Musk and Zuckerberg are planning at the Italian Colosseum? Now, also it was quite the talked about, might be the most talked about film of the year, the Sound of Freedom, a film based on a true story of about the founder of the Operation Underground Railroad, Tim Ballard, who rescued millions of children who had been trafficked, used as sex slaves. The reason why apparently this film is controversial, even though it's telling a harrowing tale, it's telling the tale of a liberator, a man who literally saved the children from horrific sexual abuse. Because in this upside down clown world that we live in, widespread child sex trafficking is just a far right conspiracy theory. And so Rolling Stone, they led the charge and said, likening the film to a QAnon conspiracy theories and of dads pipes dreaming of playing superheroes. Apparently protecting, saving children is wanting to cosplay as a superhero. I thought Marvel films were about cosplaying as superheroes. And this was constantly repeated that this film is a bad influence because it peddles QAnon conspiracy theories, and we had this amazing exchange on CNN about how Sound of Freedom it's going to lead to a resurgence of QAnon.
And you seem pretty familiar with him because he doesn't really hide his association with this real wild plot that involves, drinking the blood of children and things like that.
No, he doesn't hide it at all. And you have a lot of people who are in this world of QAnon who say, oh, they don't know what that is. They've never heard of it. They're just asking questions. With somebody like Jim Caviezel, he is openly embracing it. He's openly using its catchphrases and its concepts. He's speaking at QAnon conventions. And this film is being marketed to either specific QAnon believers or to people who believe all of the same tenets as QAnon, but claim they don't know what it is.
And The Sound of Freedom does focus on a real issue of sex trafficking. But that theme, it's sort of like that kernel of truth that feeds the QAnon conspiracy theory. Tell us how those two things work together.
Sure. And the most durable and the most believable conspiracy theories are not entirely false. There's something in them that is true and the rest of it is false. But the believers point to the one true thing and they say, oh, you don't believe that this particular thing is true. In terms of child trafficking, we know trafficking is real. We know it has real victims. No one is denying that. But these films are created out of moral panics. They're created out of bogus statistics. They're created out of fear. And with something like Sound of Freedom, it specifically is looking at QAnon concepts of these child trafficking rings that are run by the high-level elites, and only people like Tim Ballard and only people like Jim Caviezel, and by extension, only people like the ticket buyer can help bring these trafficking rings down. So there's a very participatory element. You're not just going to see a movie, you're just killing 2 hours on a hot day. You are helping bring down these pedophile rings and save children. Now, it's not true, but it's a very comforting and it's a very warm feeling to have.
Now, I just want to ask people in the chat, do you, the term QAnon seems to have lost all meaning. Does anyone in the chat actually know what QAnon is? It's always just been knocked about as a way to dismiss Trump supporters and those who are alarmed at the sexual, or rightly alarmed about the continuing sexual abuse, sex trafficking of children, and it's continuing on. We covered on this show, I think last week, about how Boston police stumbled upon a apartment full of men in drag with sex toys who had 4 children hiding in the back. Absolutely horrific. And of course, the high profile cases, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, their child trafficking. QAnon is a very specific conspiracy theory. I'll summarize it. It is that there's this deep state insider called Q, who's aligned with Trump, who was putting on all of these anonymous message boards, 4chans, Reddits. Oh, Trump's got a grand plan to end all the sex trafficking and to bring down the deep state. Trust the plan, man. That was basically the slogan of Q. And so when Trump lost the election, Q was still saying, trust the plan, man. He's going to come back as president. You could say that maybe it inspired a few people to turn up on January 6th, just as trust the plan, man. It's all going to come to fruition. And it was all bogus. It was ridiculous. And these another ridiculous view of QAnon is that pedophiles wear matching red shoes because so when they drink the Acromacon, the blood doesn't stain their shoes. But why would pedophiles wear shoes identifying that they're pedophiles? I mean, really. Now, of course, you saw the CNN host there, or contributor, I should say, saying, "Oh, look, people are going to be seeing this film and think that it's going to be helping spread the message." Well, there was something peculiar that happened in a AMC theater over in the United States. That all of a sudden the film couldn't be shown because the air conditioning malfunctioned in that one theater that was showing The Sound of Freedom. Oh dear, we couldn't show the film.
So, don't know if any one of you have already been to see The Sound of Freedom, but my friends and I just walked out. Hi. And we are curious what your experiences were in the movie theater, because we pre-ordered our tickets, paid for them, they were claimed, got the link sent, and this is an AMC theater in Pineville, North Carolina. Some point today, the tickets got refunded to my friend and we couldn't figure out why. So we come anyways to the theater after dinner and they're like, "Oh, well, we refunded all the tickets because there's no air conditioning in our theaters." Okay, whatever, we don't care. Are you still showing it? Yeah, you can still watch it. So we get to thinking, why did they not send out a notice in the email saying, "Hey, we refunded your tickets because there's no air conditioning," and we just are curious why didn't they let us know? There was no one in that theater. There was us four and four other people, 8 people in the theater on a Friday night. There was air conditioning in the lobby. There was air conditioning in the hallways. There was air conditioning in the bathrooms, not the theaters. They don't have the bartender or anything in the theater. I smell something stinky, and I think it's shit.
Yeah, I haven't seen the mainstream media this alarmed, triggered by a movie since Joker in 2019. Remember that they were claiming that if single white men saw Joker, it might inspire them to become mass shooters or terrorists or anything else, and it was extremely dangerous for people to go and see that film, but they saw it anyway. Now that brings me to the end of another Tim's News explosion. Now it's not time for a big announcement. Is that I will be, and the Unshackled will be co-producing a new show. I will be co-hosting a show with Andy Nolch, who has just returned from Europe, including Ukraine. You remember that Andy Nolch previously contributed to the Unshackled. We're going to be launching a show discussing the theories behind the news, why things are happening. As you know, Andy has some very some people would say very out there views about why the world the way it is. Me and him, we have come into quite the disagreements over our time collaborating. So I thought, what better forum than for me and Andy to discuss what we think's really going on than in a live show with all of you in the discussion. So we're hoping it will be a frank and fiery discussion. I know that Andy will try and push my buttons, as I will him. It will be starting not tomorrow, Tuesday, but next Tuesday, the 18th of July at 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We will most likely be creating a new YouTube channel like Joel and Blair do for their show. So we will be promoting that throughout the week, and we will be linking. Make sure that when the link is sent out, subscribe to the channel, click the bell to allow the notifications. And also, it'll be a busy next week for me because Wilmsfront will finally return this Sunday evening, 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I will be interviewing Bettina Arndt. You will remember her. She has been around for many years. She is now most famously known as a men's rights activist. They tried to take away her Order of Australia medal back in 2020 because she interviewed the teacher convicted of underage, having the relations with Grace Tame when she was still a school student. We'll be discussing the unraveling of Me Too. Obviously, we've seen that with the Lisa Wilkinson, Brittany Higgins tapes. So this Sunday, it'll be a Wilmstrump with Bettina Arnott. It will be a pre-record because Bettina is not available Sunday, but we've managed to arrange a time for a pre-record. So that'll be Sunday, then Monday, another Tim's News Explosion. And then on Tuesday, me and Andy Nolch's News Theorist show will come up with a precise title and graphic later in the week at 9 p.m. on Tuesday. And of course, a new fresh report from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft will be published later in the week. Thank you so much for your company once again. Remember, if you want to support the Unshackled but don't want to send through a super chat, you can take out an Unshackled membership. $5 per month bronze, $10 per month silver, $25 per month gold, and platinum $50 per month. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay sane, stay happy, stay warm throughout this cold winter, and stay optimistic as well. And I will see you in less than a week now. I'll see you on next Sunday. Good night, everybody. Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.